The Avengers vs. the Peter Factor by midnightwolf2192. Chapter 29, Field Trip Preparation, Part 2. When Peter returned to school on Monday, it was to little fanfare. The whole school had heard about Mark's expulsion. Those who had been in his class talked about how his mother had appeared in the classroom, followed closely by his father and Principal Marita. Mrs. Walters was sobbing as she grabbed her son firmly by the arm and dragged him out of his chair with a surprising amount of strength. The whole class had heard her screaming at him for what he had done. As far as anyone could guess, he'd beaten up another kid badly. For such a smart school, very few people made the connection between Peter's absence and the drama with Marcus. People had then witnessed Marcus cleaning out his locker and his dad angrily looming over him while Marita and the school security guard stood out to the side as well. Ned had texted Peter updates about Marcus's expulsion, and Peter had walked straight up to Pepper's office. The woman looked at him with a smile, and Peter just walked over to her and hugged her tightly. "Thanks, Mum," Peter murmured, and Pepper pressed a kiss to the top of his head. And if Tony had saved the screenshot he took of Pepper and Peter's hug and made it his phone screensaver, who was going to know? "Dude, the place has been mad," Ned commented as he met Peter at his locker on Monday morning. Marcus was expelled and the whole school has been going through anti-bullying seminars since Wednesday. "But are you okay?" "Yeah, dude, I'm alright," Peter replied. His injuries had healed overnight, thankfully, but it had taken 3 days to calm Nebs and Uncle Wolf down enough not to go on a rampage at the school. The other Avengers had taken less time, just barely in the case of Wanda and Natasha. Peter had put his foot down on telling Grandpa Fury and the Asgardians. No one on Earth would have been able to stop them from going to the school and killing Marcus and the others. "Did you losers bring your slips?" MJ asked as she approached her friends. Both boys nodded and waved the slips of paper at her. "Good, Peter, I expect a behind-the-scenes tour, or at least a good commentary." "Sure, MJ," Peter replied with an eye roll. "You do know there will be nothing you haven't seen before, right?" "I know, but I totally believe your extended family will embarrass you, so I want lots of images for my sketchbook," MJ said with a smirk. Peter groaned softly, and both MJ and Ned laughed at him. The rest of the day passed in relative peace until academic decathlon that afternoon. Peter and Ned were sitting in their seats discussing the newest Lego set Tony had brought for Peter when 2 hands slammed down onto the table. Flash was glaring at Peter with a smirk on his face. "So, you ran to your stupid aunt about what happened last week, did you?" Flash hissed. "It's your fault Marcus got expelled." "No, Flash, it's his own dang fault," Peter replied. Flash raised his eyebrow as Peter spoke back, something the other boy never did, but Peter had gotten a boost of confidence over the last week. He knew Pepper would address Flash's bullying, but that didn't mean he had to put up with it anymore. "I'm the one with still healing cracked ribs." "Whatever, penis. Just know I am thoroughly going to enjoy ruining you on Friday," Flash said. "I am going to prove to everyone you've been lying about your internship, and when I do, they're going to chuck you out on your poor, pathetic butt." Flash moved across the room to his own seat as Mr. Harrington entered, and Peter and Ned both glared at him from their seats. Throughout practice, Flash kept shooting Peter dirty looks, and when it ended, both MJ and Ned escorted Peter to Happy's waiting car. None of the teens were naive enough to believe Flash would let Peter's sass go unchecked. For the rest of the week, Peter avoided Flash as much as possible. Things were made worse by his chemistry teacher's snide comments about Peter's internship. "So, since Mr. Parker believes he is smarter than all of us because of his supposed internship," Mr. Phillips sneered at Peter on Thursday, "perhaps he can come up here and balance all 15 of these equations. Anyone who assists him will be given detention." Peter barely restrained himself from rolling his eyes as he approached the board. He kept his head down as he balanced each equation the teacher gave him. When he was done, he made direct eye contact with Mr. Phillips, dropping the whiteboard marker back onto his desk, and walked back to his seat. The bell rang for the end of class, but no one moved. Everyone wanted to see what would happen between Peter and their teacher. "Well, I guess we'll just see tomorrow, won't we, Mr. Parker?" Mr. Phillips said. "I expect you to be early tomorrow. Wouldn't want you to miss the bus." "I won't be on the bus, sir," Peter replied. "I have my internship tonight." so I have approval from my aunt and Principal Marita to meet you all at Stark Industries in the morning. Mr. Phillips simply glared at Peter as he dismissed the class. Peter and Ned made their way to the last class of the day, and Peter growled under his breath as Flash shoved him into the doorframe on their way out into the class. Just 24 hours more, Pete, Ned murmured as the boys took their seats. Peter nodded and took a few deep breaths before focusing on what his teacher was saying. That night, over dinner, Peter cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. They all turned to their favourite teenager. Eddie took a deep breath. Okay, I have some ground rules for the field trip tomorrow, Peter said, and the Avengers all raised an eyebrow at him. Don't insult my intelligence by saying you weren't planning anything. I know all of you far too well for that. But I do have some ground rules. The floor is yours, Bambino, Tony replied fondly. First, no stupid behaviour. That means no pranks, no adjusting Friday to make her say something stupid when I arrive. Nothing. Peter said, staring at Tony and then Clint, the two most likely to try and prank him like that. Second, I know you will ignore this, but please don't embarrass me. I'm not ashamed of any of you, but I know that all of you like to see me blush. I can't stop you from crashing the tour, and again, I'm not dumb enough to try to stop you. Just remember that I go to school with these people after this. Third, remember that no one knows my identity. I'd like to keep it that way. Fourth, no one besides Ned and MJ know that I live here now. Again, I'd like to keep that on the down low as well. I don't need that kind of attention. So we can still visit? Clint asked with a smirk, and Peter sighed. Like I said, I can't stop you. He then shot Clint a smirk with his own. Just remember that I have to go back to school and spend my days with these people. Also understand that any pranks that you play will be reciprocated with a vengeance. The Avengers all solemnly nodded for a minute before Rhodey let out a snort. That set the rest of the Avengers off, and they were all soon laughing brightly. Peter rolled his eyes fondly as Nebula pulled him back to his seat beside her. He really did love his family. Friday morning rolled around, and Ned climbed eagerly onto the bus. His mum had dropped him off early to school, and he was surprisingly one of the first people to arrive for the trip. What was even more surprising was that Principal Marita was one of the chaperones on the trip, along with Mr. Harrington and Mr. Phillips. Pianist must have been too afraid to show up. Flash's voice grated on Ned's nerves as the boy and his friends climbed onto the bus. Ned and MJ shared a glance and both rolled their eyes. Flash, if you had been listening yesterday, you would remember that Peter is meeting us at Stark Industries. MJ drawled as she pulled out her sketchbook. I understand why Tubbs over there would believe the bull but I'm surprised about you, Michelle. Flash said. Before MJ or Ned could respond, Principal Marita climbed onto the bus. Mr. Thompson, name-calling is not permitted on school property. The principal's voice was firm as he addressed Flash. This is your first warning. If I hear anything else nasty aimed at your peers, you will be spending the entire trip sitting on the bus with the driver. Once we arrive at Stark Industries, you are representing our school. Don't let us down. Flash moved to a seat at the back of the bus, and Ned smirked as the rest of the group climbed onto the bus. Once everyone had arrived, the bus driver pulled out into the traffic and headed for Stark Industries. Ned texted Peter that they were on their way, and he got a thumbs-up emoji in reply. 40 minutes later, the bus pulled up outside SI, and the group exited excitedly. The teens followed their teachers into the foyer, and Ned was instantly looking for his friend. He spotted Peter talking to Trish, one of the receptionists, and grinned. The group made their way over to where Peter was standing, and when the boy finally noticed the group, he met them halfway. Morning, Mr. Marita, Mr. Harrington, Mr. Phillips. Peter's voice was cheery, but his friends could hear an undertone of sarcasm as he spoke Phillips' names. Peter approached MJ and Ned, and Ned did their handshake. How was the ride over? As the trio talked, Flash glared at them. He had to prove that Penis was lying. There was no way someone as pathetic as Penis Parker could have an internship here. Flash was much better suited for the image of Stark Industries. Perhaps, by the end of the day, Flash would be an intern. They'd have to reward him for proving Penis was lying and besmirching the company's name. Hope you enjoyed this. Sorry if the nicknames for Peter were a little much, but you have to say them to get the effect. So, let's get ready for the next chapter. See you guys later. Bye.